But first, I do want to give an update on public health metrics with respect to COVID-19. On Monday, I think as everybody knows, we began phase 2 of our reopening program. Over the past few days, restaurants have opened for outdoor dining, retail stores have welcomed customers inside, and other businesses and activities have restarted. We're glad to be able to responsibly open up more parts of our economy, but as everybody knows, continued progress in reopening depends on our ability to keep pushing back against COVID-19. We're glad to see the public health data continues to move in the right direction, a clear indication that we continue to make progress in this fight against the virus. Yesterday, over 10,000 tests were reported and only 267 new cases were confirmed positive. As of yesterday, we've conducted over 660,000 tests across the Commonwealth. The average positive test rate is down to 4.2%. That's about an 86% reduction in the number of positive cases on a percentage basis since April 15th. And the number of people that remain hospitalized due to COVID is down to 1,386, which is down over 60% since the middle of April. And obviously, we hope to continue to see positive development on those trends as we move further into phase 2 and beyond. Now, with respect to today's visit at the food bank, food security has obviously been something the administration has been working hard to address with many of our colleagues in state government, in local government, and in the food business here in Massachusetts prior to the pandemic. But like in so many other areas, this public health emergency has heightened the concerns and the needs of many of our vulnerable families and communities. We recognize that this crisis has made things more difficult for families that were food insecure and has obviously increased the need in many communities across Massachusetts. There are many people and many families who've never called on places like the Greater Boston Food Bank for help before, but now they really need it. The increased demand underscores the importance of organizations like the Greater Boston Food Bank and so many of their peer organizations around the Commonwealth. The Lieutenant Governor and I and others have had the opportunity to visit this facilities many times and talk to the team. And each time we do, we're all reminded about what an asset this organization is for Boston and for the Commonwealth as a whole. Last year, the food bank distributed over 68 million pounds of food across a wide area that stretched from the Cape Cod border, or from the New Hampshire border to Cape Cod, the islands, and the South Coast. In a minute, you'll hear more about what's been going on here at GBFB from Catherine D'Amato, who can talk specifically about the food bank's incredible work. COVID-19 has affected everybody here in the Commonwealth in one way or another, but some of our communities have obviously been disproportionately impacted. Last month, we announced a $56 million investment to combat urgent food insecurity for some Massachusetts families and individuals as a result of COVID-19. That funding was a recommendation of a food security task force that we put together earlier this spring. The task force was established to provide more access to food assistance during COVID-19, and we're pleased to have representatives from the Greater Boston Food Bank as part of that group. One of the investments we announced last month was a new $36 million food security infrastructure grant program to provide individuals and families with access to fresh local food. Today, we're here to announce that the administration has opened applications for that grant program. The program is open to organizations that are part of the Massachusetts local food system, including production, processing, distribution, and community food organizations. In addition to those organizations, school meal programming, urban farms, community gardens, and other organizations that are involved in this effort can also apply. Applications will be evaluated on a rolling basis through the fall, September 15, 2020. The funds are part of a broader $56 million investment that we announced last month as part of our work to implement the recommendations of the Food Security Task Force. Other investments include a $5 million increase in the Healthy Incentives Program to meet increased demand for local produce and to increase access points that produce SNAP and HIP benefits. $3 million in funding for immediate relief for food banks, $12 million for the provision of 25,000 family food boxes per week through a regional food supply system. Each family food box contains 30 to 35 meals, and the food boxes are distributed throughout the state. This work will continue through the summer as needed. We'll continue to bring every resource that we can to bear here in the Commonwealth as we continue to fight COVID-19. And we'll work with the Food Security Task Force and our partners in the legislature to continue to address food security issues going forward and to ensure that every family and individual in the Commonwealth has access to food. The House and Senate have been tremendous proponents on this issue for a very long time, and they help to make many of these resources available. Ensuring that families have the food that they need on the table will always be one of the crucial priorities that we continue to work with our colleagues on as we recover and seek to move forward in the weeks and months to come. I also just want to say, having walked through the facility here, it's almost every organization that does almost anything has had to pivot and change in a pretty significant way the way it operates to deal with many of the constraints and the obstacles and the disruptions that have been associated with COVID-19. But the work that's been done by this organization and so many other organizations who are part of this food security network to think differently about the way they both packaged and delivered product so that they could make it possible for people to continue to access the food that they needed, but do so in a way that would be safe, given that historically a lot of this has been done by bringing it to food pantries and then giving people the ability to shop. You really can't do that in a COVID-19 environment for a whole bunch of reasons. So what people have done is they've created packaging that in many cases carries as much as a week's worth of fruits and vegetables, a week's worth of dry goods, a week's worth of other kinds of protein, and made those boxes available to people, and then those boxes become the vehicle through which they actually get access to those services. And in some cases, they just go directly to the places where most of these folks live and have it distributed there. I know it feels like we've been in this thing for a very long time, but it's pretty impressive to think that a big supply chain like this, which is national in many respects and certainly statewide when you get here in Massachusetts, has done so many things to think differently in the course of about 3 months to make sure that it had the ability to both continue to provide more product, in many cases as much as 50 or 60% more product than they'd historically delivered, and come up with delivery models that were actually safer from an infection control point of view than the way they'd done it historically. It's a real tribute, honestly, to everybody who's been part of this exercise.